Today we have a very special guest joining us for our topic, Dr. Cobus Oberholster. He is the General Manager at BKB and he looks after the divisions Livestock, Properties and Auction. Our topic for today is we would like to discuss real estate or property within the agricultural sphere of South Africa.
Rubé, thanks for having me. I think it's important that before we discuss agricultural properties in South Africa, it's always just good to have a quick throwback and discuss that where Home Hectare comes from within BKB. And traditionally, BKB conducted its property business just under the brand BKB Properties. And about 5 years ago, we rebranded it under the Home Hectare brand. And since then, we have a significant growth in the business, both in the residential as well as in the farm property environment.
So to kick the topic off for today, Cobus, in your opinion, do you think there's enough arable land in South Africa to support our agricultural needs?
That's a very good question because a lot of people are concerned that we will run out of food in the near future. But the good news is that in South Africa and in Africa and the world, there's enough arable land. But the focus in agriculture is not on expanding arable land or hectares under production. It's much more a focus on intensification of agricultural production. Now, intensification means the use of technology and irrigation. So you do more with the same hectares. But yes, in your question is there are enough hectares in the world and in South Africa.
And then coupled with this, which farming sectors are performing better and how do these compare to livestock farming, for instance?
In general, in South Africa and in the world, if you look at commodity prices, and with commodities I mean agricultural commodities, I think commodity prices are very good, constantly. So all the sectors which we export is doing well, but specifically the livestock sector, which BKB is involved as well, is if you look at the global demand for red meat, and you look at the demand even on the continent sub-Sahara Africa, then the agricultural sector as well as the livestock sector is in a very good place. So there is a growing demand. I think it's much more a matter when you look at livestock that maybe we don't have enough livestock.
And then what are the main conditions and drivers for profitability when it comes to farms?
We farm because we want to make profit. The problem at the moment in the agricultural sector is that input inflation is very high, and that's across the different sectors in agriculture. But profitability is influenced by both input inflation, but also by output. But in South Africa, on the commercial side, we have very good farmers. And I think in terms of that output, in terms of yield per hectare, and all those measurements of output, I think we're quite good. I think the big thing that is hindering agriculture is input inflation. If you just look at diesel and the electricity cost, which is now just adding up, that is a big problem for agriculture.
And how does this, for instance, impact the value of the farms when you are looking at buying or selling?
When you try to answer or understand how it impacts the value of farm properties, I think one must go back to my previous comment on agricultural intensification. Now, intensification means is the increased use of technology in production, irrigation, and that type of technologies. So that indeed influences the value of farms. So I think it's not so much the value of the underlying land, but it's more the value that of the technology and the intensification type of environments, which significantly increase the prices of farms.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Rubé, on the topic of land values, I think an important perspective is, in my humble opinion, is that agriculture is actually very attractive to draw equity to the sector. And my explanation for that is, if you look at food inflation, The current levels of food inflation is very similar with the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. Now, high food prices have implications for poor people in terms of food security, but high food prices also offers a higher profit opportunity. And over the past decade and a half, we actually experienced that private equity invested in agriculture. And my humble opinion is that the sector is actually attractive for investment, and it will definitely push up farm prices.
And I can just add to that by giving a little bit of a data from our side, Home Hectare. In the last 10 months, we've sold just under 500 million rands worth of farm property. So demand is definitely there. People are buying.
So I think that's a positive. So it has two dimensions, high food inflation. One is it has implications for poor people, but it makes the sector attractive for investment.
And then, Cobus, food security is obviously one of the main focus of agriculture in South Africa. And as you've mentioned, the input costs, which also relates to high energy costs, supply, and climate change, and how do these factors influence farming in general?
Food security is a relevant and a very important topic in agriculture. But when one look at food security, there's a lot of dimensions of food security. So it is very difficult to just look at food security in terms of enough food. It's about nutritional value, accessibility, affordability. So there's a lot of elements of food security. But yes, climate change had a significant impact on agriculture. I think the problem is that we, at this moment, can't understand the real impact, although there's a lot of research, but it's relevant. It's relevant to the livestock sector as well. But in general, my humble opinion is if we look at the environment and if we look at agricultural intensification, food security, it will be a challenge, but I'm not that concerned. We had the discussion the other day, if we just stop food waste, then we're already at, I think, 20% to the amount of food available. So there's some quick wins as well, and there's a lot of long-term wins as well. But climate change is relevant, and it is a real threat to food security.
And then in terms of meeting these challenges that we face in South Africa, what is the impact of that on farming?
In South Africa, there's a big thing which everyone is concerned, and that is about what is going to happen with my land if government is laying their hands on that. I'm not concerned about that. I think in South Africa, our financial market is stable and our agricultural market is fairly stable. I think the challenges for agriculture is more how do we secure production in the face of climate change. And I think very important is how are we going to fund these changes in agricultural production, because to convert a farming operation to a more sustainable production system costs money. It's time and money. I think the real challenge is to be really innovative in terms of financing solutions.
So, and that brings me to my next question. Have we got any innovative finance or insurance options for the producers out there? And do you think BKB will play a role in this sector?
We can talk a lot about food security. We can talk a lot about climate change. We can talk a lot about what must happen with the sector. But in the end, everything boils down to finance. So I think in South Africa and globally, the real challenge, except for climate change, is to find suitable financing models. The traditional models will not work forever. So, and if I talk finance, I include insurance, because that's part of your risk management. But in terms of finance, I think there must be some innovation, and BKB will definitely take part in that. And the innovation is not so much about the loans and the amount of loans. It's much more about I think we're looking at new ownership models in agriculture. Who owns land and what structures owns land. And that ownership models most probably will provide us with opportunities to innovate finance. The insurance side, it's a bit more difficult because I think there is risks that you can insure and there's risks that you cannot insure. And that you cannot insure, you must manage that. So I think from insurance or a risk management perspective, we're going to see a lot more hands-on risk management practices and not passing all the risk to insurance company because they will lose appetite. So I hope I answer you correctly. So if you look at finance, I think the innovation will come and the doors will be opened by new ownership structures.
Okay, yeah, that definitely answers my question. My next one was going to be if there are any options available already, but I think you have answered that question. So I don't know if you want to add anything to a specific innovative financing option that is out there.
Rubé, I think if you look at farm properties in South Africa, the value of farm properties haven't come down. It's an expensive asset that you buy. So financing models in future will have to look at underlying commodities and not so much on the farmland as collateral. So, and then that brings us into the space of emerging farmers, which in many cases the farmers don't own land. So there the real innovation will be to what the finance people call derivatives, to structure new financing products on the back of the underlying agricultural commodity. So there's a lot of opportunities. In South Africa, we are spoiled with maize, which is a summer grain, and all the suffix commodities. But the moment you move out of the space of suffix commodities, then the challenge is there for the banks. But I'm very excited. I think new things is coming. But yeah, finance is everything.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cobus, for joining us today. It was so nice chatting to you. And for the listeners, I really hope you look forward to chatting to us again on more insightful and interesting topics when it comes to the property landscape in the agri-sector of South Africa.
Thank you, Rubé. I'm excited about the future of Home Hectare and the property business.